Good evening and welcome to Interface. I am Rams Mabote and it is a privilege to be your host on this International Women's Day. Speaking of which, South Africa has made progress in gender equality. Since 1994, the country has seen a number of women taking up leadership positions in areas previously dominated by men. One of the success stories of our democracy is the representation of women in government. Curiously though, women representation in the media leaves much to be desired. Very few women own media companies. Women representation in news, both as subjects and influencers, is also very low. But before we discuss this issue, let's look at this insight produced by Rosalia Whitehead.
Since the dawn of democracy, South Africa has had a gradual shift towards increased representation of women in the public, private and civil society sectors. Prior to 1994, South African women were regarded as second-class citizens. The introduction of the Bill of Rights in the new constitution made it clear that women were not to be unfairly discriminated on the basis of being a woman. For black women, who were disadvantaged because of race and their gender, this law was significant in making them equal citizens. The South African government established institutions such as the Commission on Gender Equality to expose gender discrimination in laws, policies and practices, advocate changes in sexist attitudes and gender stereotypes, and instill respect for women's rights as human rights. According to the World Economic Forum, South Africa is the best performing country in Africa on the political empowerment of women. Just before last year's elections, the National Assembly passed the Women Empowerment and Gender Equality Bill, which obliges both public and private entities to ensure gender parity. Despite progress, South Africa was criticized at the recent SADC Protocol at Work Summit for not achieving 50-50 gender parity in government. Women's representation in parliament dropped from 44% in the 2009 elections to 40% in last year's polls. This drop is also evident in the provincial government. Experts attribute the drop in gender parity to South Africa's refusal to adopt legislation to enforce a 50-50 gender representation. At the World Economic Forum's annual meeting this year, the lack of women participation was evident, suggesting this was also a challenge at such a high-profile event. A shocking low level of only 17% of women delegates attended. One other area that lacks gender transformation is the media. The Africa Global Media Monitoring Project 2010 report shows that female voices rarely make it into news stories and female sources are less quoted than male sources. Despite positive developments in achieving racial equity in the newsroom, studies show that the hiring of more women has not changed news content. Stories written by female journalists differ very little from their male counterparts. 12 of 43 editors are female and only 6 out of 43 are black women. From tomorrow, South Africa will participate in the 59th session of the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women. The country is expected to provide a national-level review of the progress and the challenges encountered in implementing the Beijing Platform for Action for the achievement of gender equality and empowerment of women. Women make up more than half of the population of South Africa, but as studies show, they are absent as leaders in the public and private sectors. They do not influence the news agenda and public discourse is still dominated by men. So what steps need to be taken to ensure gender equality? Rosalia Whitehead for Interface Johannesburg.
Welcome back. That insight was done by Rosalia Whitehead. I'm joined in studio by two guests who are going to give us some insight on the matter that we're talking about. And I want to start immediately by asking you, Glenda. That insight says that women have not, the change that we need to see women developing and getting to the next level has been very slow. One, is it a reflection on women not doing enough to agitate change? Or is it men guarding their space and making sure that they don't move?
Look, I think it's actually a bit of both. I think we've lost that impetus that we had about 20 years ago during the Women's National Coalition and when South African women went to the Beijing conference. And there was this whole fire in women to do something and to make change happen. And then it did start to happen in South Africa. It did start to happen with women in government, women in positions of power, etc. And then somehow things started to slide back. So where we say change has been slow, it most certainly is the case. Change has been slower than we would have expected to happen by this stage, 20 years on into democracy.
But I ask again, is it because women have now relaxed feeling, we've made progress, look at the stats. In 1994, there were 27.8% of women in the 400-seat legislature. It went up in 2009 to 44%. It's now dropped to in 2013 to 40%. Could it be again that women felt complacent, we've done enough, it's time to walk away?
No, I really honestly don't think it's about women feeling complacent at all. I think women are feeling frustrated with the blocks at every turn that they're experiencing. I really don't think it's complacent. I think there's frustration, and I think women are experiencing very real things on the ground, walking in the streets at night alone. Experiencing domestic violence, that's increased. Rape has increased, so they're all very real everyday factors that women have to put up with. So as much as we need to fight for equal pay for women, it's a big fight worldwide, not just in South Africa, and not just in the media, and not just with actresses, and we don't know what's happening in government, whether there's equal pay for women. So as much as we've got those fights up there with the middle class and upper class women, at the very low level down below, women are actually struggling to put food on the table. I
have to bring you in here and ask, the insight also speaks about 12 in 43 editors are women. Should it matter?
It should matter because we need to get more female representation. We need to have more female editors. Women are not seen as newsmakers. We need to actually find women who are in charge and in control of being able to say, we need to have gender representation and gender-sensitive stories.
But do the numbers determine content, really? Should it be determined by numbers, that content?
In terms of women editors?
Yes.
You think so, Glenda?
Yes, I think the numbers do make a difference. I'm not into a number counter all the time. Yeah. I mean, I don't think transformation, whether it's about black or whether it's about women, is always about numbers, but the numbers are important. Yeah. So when you see, for instance, the number of women editors going down from 2013 to 2014 instead of going up. 72% of editors are male. It does make a difference because it's not going to be in the back of a male editor's consciousness. The 8th of March is International Day, Women's International Day. It might well be, not necessarily, but it might well be on the agenda of a woman editor.
But that's exactly my fear, that don't we wait too much for the 9th of August in South Africa and the 8th of March in the whole world to worry about this day, and then we go back to 363 days of normalcy where men are still running the show?
Yeah, look, that's the culture, unfortunately. And we need to enshrine the culture of saying every day should be a day where impact is made. And that's where we have to rally in our government, because that's where the impact comes in. We normally tend to have big hoo-has around the commemorative days, which shouldn't be like that, or during the 16 days of activism, because violence happens throughout the year. But I think where we're failing with our government is for them to take these initiatives and make it a 365 implementation. For example, we need to think about, for example, now we're going towards the August month. Today it's Women's Day. And Glenda and I were saying, what are we doing for International Women's Day? I know that there's
But why should it be done by government? What are you doing? What are you guys doing on International Women's Day?
Well, civil society has been helping government to implement some of their work. But the core of implementation and service delivery should be coming from government. Because what we need to actually see and account is what changes are being done at that level within government. And it comes to the point of which you were saying earlier on, talking about the representation, the numbers sliding down, for example, you were saying, are women complacent? No, women are not complacent. Men are not ready for the change. And the baton is not being passed around women, it's being passed around men. Speaking about succession debates, for example, we don't hear about when is the next female president going to run up. 21 years into our democracy, we're still seeing...
And where should that debate happen? Should it happen in government? Should it happen at Luthuli House? Should it happen on the streets? Where exactly should it be located?
It should be happening from the governmental levels with political parties, for example, because those are the people that influence policies. Those are the people that influence our constitution. Those are people that influence...
If that mattered, I would have thought women would have rallied behind, say, a Mampela Rampele. Last year, you know, there would have been a huge landslide, you know, movement of women to say, here's one who looks like us, here's one who speaks like us, maybe we should vote for her. That never happened.
It didn't.
I think it did happen to some extent.
No.
I think women did get excited about here's an alternative to the ANC, and she's a black woman, and she's
And forget about
dynamic.
alternative to ANC, more concerned about an alternative to men.
An alternative
I did not
to
see.
men.
I did not see many
They
women
said-
flock to voting for another woman.
Look, I think sorry, there's still a great gap in terms of women supporting other women, especially in the field of politics, because the women that we have there are always portrayed as males. It's like they're she women, and Mampele Rampele brings a different notion. She's not refined, but she's not someone who's been in the struggle long enough to get into the game of politics. So when she came out, they had that short marriage with the DA, and it broke up. The media had a field day. They were saying these women are both incompetent, silly, and they just had a short marriage and now they got divorced. So, you know, it was a bit of a difficult one, but I think she should have garnered more support.
Let's get out of politics for a while and talk about real life stuff. But when I come back, I would like to ask you about two organizations that, for me, always, you know, show some strength. There's the Black Management Forum, which has agitated so much for affirmative action, and there's AfriForum on the other side. I have not seen a similar women's organization agitating for women's issues. When we come back, we talk about that. Let's take a break and talk to our guests when we return.
When you go to a place, just try to stay for a while on the camera.
Okay.
Oh, you didn't give...
You didn't notice. I had to play games. I mean, they didn't script your names there.
Okay, well, now they've...
This is live, so I have no chance of saying cut. I gotta see the names.
I didn't even notice that.
Thank you. That's a compliment to me.
We do need to talk about why the level of activism has decreased in the country. What? And I don't know the answer. That's what I'm trying to think now.
Trivial and very agitating to me, but I want to talk about. And you see it in social media conversations. Yeah, you know, women don't like one another, women pull one another down. I think it's absolute crap. But it's a science that exists out there. It's completely crap science in my view. But why does this science happen? And have we reached a point of a self-fulfilling prophecy now where once you get to that position, you gotta fulfill the belief that you're not supposed to be good to other women? You know, 'cause I think it's Welcome back. Our guests are Dr. Glenda Daniels, Senior Lecturer at the Department of Media Studies at Wits University, and Ntombi Mbandlanyana is Deputy Governance Manager at Gender Links. Thank you for staying with us. Ntombi, I asked earlier, we have AfriForum And for years, we've had an organization like the Black Management Forum. They were known, and they are known even today, to advocate for specific issues. I do not know. I mean, I know gender links, but I do not know that you make as much noise as AfriForum. I mean, at the drop of anything, AfriForum is out there. And for 30 years, Black Management Forum did that. If a black manager got harassed, they would have been there. I'm not seeing that in your space.
Look, I think, Rams, in terms of advocacy and getting women's voices out there, it's what I was speaking with Glenda earlier on. We've lost the momentum. We've lost the momentum in terms of civil society organizations coming together and voicing out what we need to do to advance women's rights. You're right, there is no structure like an AfriForum or a BMF that deals specifically with gender issues. And I think the other thing is we've really lost the momentum of working together to advocate for gender equality. We've got the CGE, which is the Commission on Gender Equality, but that's a Chapter 9 institution, which really, is supposed to be the sort of governance or overall structure that looks at these gender issues. When there's a complaint, for example, against a particular individual or societal member, but there is no structure that is like AfriForum or the BMF. Why there is no structure or what's going on, it's yet to be found. But I think we're still working too much in silos.
Glenda, when a rich man decides to have sushi over a naked woman's body, what we normally complain about is the naked woman below the sushi, and not about the men treating women.
I wasn't complaining about the naked woman. I was complaining about the men who do this. And I was also thinking about why would the media think that this is a story to celebrate or to mock. I'm not sure, what that's about. So I completely agree with you about the fact that we've lost some activism, actually, and that there are a lot of other organizations that are out there all the time. For instance, SANEV, it's there, in the media space. And we do need something like that for women. With the ANC Women's League, I'm afraid it's a bit lame in terms of activism. Maybe it's a bit old. Maybe it's a generational thing, and we need younger people to be out in the streets marching and protesting against all kinds of discrimination against women, and it's huge.
I know that we phrased our conversation almost around the media and government, but let me take you to workplace. There's a very trivial and completely unscientific concept that exists there, that women pull one another down in the workplace. If you're a woman boss, you're going to be terrible to your subordinates who are female and blah, blah, blah. I personally think that it's unproven. But haven't we reached a stage of a self-fulfilling prophecy that when you get into that position, that almost inevitably happens?
I think what tends to happen, Rams, is the fact that when you get to a certain level of power or certain executive space, that tends to be male-dominated, and sometimes women assimilate to the behavior that is there. Because if, for example, if you work in an all male-dominated environment, chances are you're going to become part of the boys' club and you will assimilate to that culture. But I don't necessarily think that's true. Women are there, or women that find themselves in that space could actually be groundbreaking and bringing change. I think that these women have more power to actually bring about change and groom younger women coming up. The whole idea of women that get into positions of power and abuse power because they want to be like men or we pull each other down, it's not really, I don't think it's really concrete. If it's something that's there, it shouldn't really be there, because we need to actually be passing on the baton of knowledge towards other women too. And that's the space where we actually should be pushing each other up and not pulling each other down.
And I must say, in my career and in my experiences of the workplace, I haven't experienced that, so it is completely unscientific. It's very, very sexist. And where do these things actually come from? I think it comes from a very patriarchal culture. They are saying that. And then when women assert themselves, and when women are role models and reach a certain pinnacle in their career and have positions of power, they're called bitchy, they're called bossy, they're all kinds of ugly words. Which you don't get the same. You won't get Rams being called a strident, pushy man. But if it was
I've been called that
Glenda,
before.
have you? No. But if it was Glenda saying something, oh, you know, I could be called all sorts of ugly words.
Tomorrow starts the 59th session of the UN Commission on Status of Women. Two issues that are very key. There's poverty and women progress. I want us to come back and talk about how poverty impacts women's progress to get to the point that they need to get to. So let's take a break. When we come back and talk about this.